Hello everyone. Welcome back to another stream, the second stream in this week, and it's just Wednesday. Why? Why suddenly so active? Because I don't know. It just I was missing streaming since a while, and Sharjah Masters turns out to be a tournament which I felt really interested in. So here we are. Why I'm so really interested in Sharjah Masters in particular, I think the primary reason is because this is the tournament where the best of the next talents come up. There is, tournaments like the GCT where already we have players like Gukesh, Prag, and Arjun playing last week. But Sharjah is where we will find these players who are going to go there in the next 2 to 3 years, the next set of talents. And it's also a classical tournament, which for me adds to a different kind of fun. And I guess it's true for a lot of people as well. But before we dive into the games, I have two options for you. We have this overlay with the Leeches logo. So, do we have this, or do we have a plain background, or do we have this color? We have three options, and I had all these three options in mind, but I decided that chat is the best to decide this. So let me know which overlay we continue with while I head into the games. We have three options. One is the neon overlay, one is the plain one without any overlay, and one is the white one. I personally like black and white, but I don't know about the rest of you. Now, diving into the games, this is Arjun's position. Arjun sadly seems to be losing in this one, and perhaps he has already lost. He has maybe already resigned. And although in this position, right now Arjun is uh, pawn up. The threat is rook e8, followed by rook into f8 and rook e8 checkmate. If black tries to defend it with the rook on the 8th rank, then the white rook comes to the 7th rank, attacking both the queen as well as the g7 pawn together, winning either the queen or checkmating. So white gets the rook either to the 8th rank or 7th rank by force, and black cannot do anything to prevent this. So Theodorou gets his revenge. I believe in the last year of Sharjah Masters, Arjun had a very quick, a very easy win over Theodorou. But Theodorou gets his revenge, and for Arjun, it has been a super hectic last 2 months. He played in Grenke, he played in Minorca, then he played in Sigemen, and then went directly to GCT, some pretty high profile tournaments, and now he's here. I think the schedule is so hectic that it's bound to catch up sooner or later, but it still remains to be seen if he's able to hit back from this defeat. I believe that in this tournament, with so many strong players, something like 6.5 might be the winning score. So there is always a lot of room for comeback, and Arjun did manage to do this last year. So let's see if he is able to do it this year as well. Moving on to the other games, let's first have an overview of all the different games out there. Quite a few results also already here. I am maybe covering. Yeah, I don't know where to hide when we have this four-board outlook, but I can make myself a little bit smaller for now. It's only the second round of Sharjah Masters, and this is the look of all the games so far. The legendary Ivan Pixel is playing against Amin Tabatabai on the second board. He seems to be losing because although he's a piece up, Black's past pawns do look menacing and dangerous. He has three of these pawns, but the position doesn't look as simple as what the computer evaluates. But the problem is Ivanchuk has only 44 seconds, and there is no time increment in Sharjah Masters. That is the brutal thing about these tournaments in UAE. Whereas in tournaments like Candidates, where there was a time addition after the first 40 moves, 30 minutes addition. In these tournaments in UAE, there is no addition of these 30 minutes, and therefore Once you're down to this 30-second zone, you're kind of stuck forever. The third board, uh, Vladimir Fedoseev is winning. Big fish. Hans has already won. Moving down, there is Arvind, who has been on fire recently. He has reached a live rating of 2685. He has overtaken both SL and Nihal. And right now, he stands at, I think, India number six, considering that we have Arjun, Gukesh, Vishi, Prag, Vidit, Hari. So he's at India number seven. And SL is at eight, Nihal is at nine. It's a crazy top 10 actually. And Arvind has reached the seventh place. This is an interesting game which we should keep an eye on as soon as we finish a first overview. Then Kairav Drew. Abhimanyu Mishra has an interesting position against Marson. Although the computer shows a big advantage, White has these three pawns. It's not quite clear actually. The position still is complicated. Murjan is winning this game against Indian and Indian designed because knight d5 check is coming on the next move and white is a piece up. Shreyas Royal has already lost against Salemea Saleh. Parham is playing against Setu. This is also a game to watch out for. Yu Yang won. Raja drew pretty quickly. I'm surprised though. I'm surprised at this result because the position seems pretty interesting. Maybe there is a transmission error. So we will reserve that one. Moving on to the next set of 12 boards. Sarana has an interesting position against Edis. Edis is one of the very talented players from Turkey, one of the upcoming prodigies, and someone to watch out for. Then there is Arsini against Artemiev. It looks pretty balanced at the moment. Andre against Daneshwar is also the same. And Sevian against Yagistan. Uh, a pretty balanced position. There are a lot of these games. Let's stick to the Indian overview, where Nihal is next. Has a very interesting position against Mikhailishvili. He seems to have a slight edge. His opponent is very much down on time. Let's see if Nihal is able to convert or not. Then Adiban against Ronak was a pretty early draw for Ronak. I mean, pretty early draw for Adiban. Adiban chose to make the draw with the white pieces. I was pretty surprised to see the game end in a draw in the first 30 minutes because AD is not someone who goes for an early draw, but it turned out to be one such day. Sankalp Gupta is clearly winning against Shan Sargisian. Great result for Sankalp with the black pieces. And Abhimanyu Puranik's game is stuck. Panam, super talented against Yilmaz Mustafa. Right now, he's a pawn up, but there's not much to be gained out of that pawn. I think the position looks sort of balanced. Ritvik Raja has already drawn against Leon Mendonca. Then we have Aditya Samant has lost against Shafarli. V Pranav, as I expected, bounces back with a win. He was the winner of the Dubai Police Tournament quite recently, and he lost in the first round in Sharjah yesterday, but he has bounced back. So that's an overview of the games. Now we will get a better layout. I can make myself bigger. Now we can have the evaluation back, but maybe let's crop this part out. Most place. Yeah, we also have the. But where is nothing? Where are the player names in? Okay, the player names are on the screen. better. Cool. So we have the evaluation bar. We have me. Uh, yeah, Arjun is the top seed, but Arjun is losing in the second round. Ivanchuk is also losing, but I think Arvind is the primary one of interest. And Arvind is with the black pieces. It's a pretty tense situation out here. First, we count the pawns 1, 2, 3, 4. Arvind is up an exchange. That's what I noticed after staring at it for 5 seconds. He's down a pawn, but he's up an exchange, which is nice because just a moves ago, it's all over. This was the point when things started really heating up. His opponent Murad for queen b2 with the idea of queen g5. Here you also see the bishop on b2 menacingly looking towards the black queen. Combined with the queen, black was hoping to checkmate. Arvind bravely pawn e4. White took the knight, trying to get the queen to g5. He steps away with king f3. And Arvind's point is that if white continues checking, then the black king simply goes away from the danger zone. The king just goes to e8 or e7, runs towards this side, and white does not have pieces on this side. All of white's pieces are concentrated towards the king. It's actually only two pieces, and the other side is secure. So white f4, trying to bring the knight also into the game. But time is also an important factor, and white's pieces simply don't have enough time to reach the post e7, except the king. And the only thing is, this looks bad for white, and it seems like black is winning. Can Arvind qualify for the Olympiad team if he maintains this rating? I think it's still possible. Actually, it's possible because by June, if he's let's say close to 2,700, he might just get that required rating difference. So the way he's been going in recent times, it doesn't seem impossible. And the Param against Setu game, here white is just a pawn up. White is just a pawn up, and has a slightly better pawn structure as well. So king g1, the rook is attacked. Knight, there is still some work to do, but I think on the whole, Farham is clearly better, and he's all set to win. How Nihal is doing, this is also a super interesting game. I think right now in the games which are going on, it's between Arvind's game as well as Nihal's game. And Nihal's game is probably going to go for a considerable while because nothing immediate seems to be happening. Starting with the pawn structure of this position, lots of pawns on the light squares, which has weakened black's dark squares. And if white manages to trade this dark square bishop, then white's knight will have access to all these weak dark squares and black's territory. But right now, black will not allow that to concretely happen. And black is also ready to take this knight on d3 if there ever comes a situation where white trades black's dark square bishop. So the game is likely to go towards a place where white gives up the knight for black's dark square bishop, going into the opposite color, opposite bishop middle game. And in these opposite color bishop middle games as well, white has a pretty promising chance of an initiative because the g7 pawn is a is knight by attacking the queen and the bishop simultaneously. I do think bishop which is likely to follow with queen takes c5, and I do think white has a pretty strong attack here because then whatever attack white does on the dark squares, black will find it very hard to counter because black does not have a dark square bishop. So this is the problem in black's position. Jayesh Yadav, hello Srinath. Oh, sorry. Whenever I use the evaluation bar on leeches, for some reason, the stream does slow down a bit, which is why I've closed it again. Jayesh Yadav, hello Srinath. So I'm stuck at 1700 rapid since the year. Can you please give me some tips on how to go further? Queen e8 is a good move, by the way, which if we had taken bishop into e5, then after queen takes e5, I think white's advantage would have been much larger. But with queen e8, he makes sure that he does not give up too much of strategic advantage to white. On the other hand, the game between Muradli against Arvind, which I think is at the closing stages because Arvind is through most of the dangers. Queen had 6 check has been played. The king will be safe behind one of black's pawns, the c pawn. The king can even go all the way to a8, hide that, and then Arvind just pushes his pawn and wins. So Arvind is totally winning. Wow, Queen e6. This is even better. He forces the trade of the queen. The knight cannot take the queen because of the pin against the king. And if white doesn't take the queen, there is also the threat of queen g4 check. So he has completely destroyed all chances of an attack. And white has also resigned due to that. We also have an official result in the Arjun game. Arjun has lost against Theodore. So the remaining games, there is the Setu game, which again big advantage for Farhan. But I think Nihal's game is the one of the maximum interest where Black has actually taken one of the pawns, bishop into c2. If White takes the bishop, then Black takes the knight on e5, and White cannot. I mean, White can pin, but then there is bishop h2 check. So Nihal has played rook to e1. The rook is protected by the queen. Look at this amazing symmetry of White's pieces on dark squares. All of them on dark squares. And now queen takes c2 is a threat. So black has to move the bishop. And wherever better, let me just improve it a little bit before I makes the a bit better. And the setup I kind of want. Yeah. So getting back to the game, rook e1 happened, bishop e4, f3 happened, and black played a5. I did not see this move at all. And it's probably watch this with the evaluation bar because the game is moving into such complex territory, which is too difficult for me to understand. We say, but apparently pretty impressively. He was a bit on the back seat. Nihal seemed to have a nice strategic advantage, but with these last few moves, his black has nicely managed to create some complexities. The problem with black's play, on the other hand, is that this has created an A fast pawn, which is going to be handy for white in the future. But the good thing for black is that black might play this undermining move c5 and win this e5 knight in a way where black does not need to go into the opposite color bishop, which we discussed just a while earlier. If bishop into e5, then after bishop into e5, uh, it reaches an opposite bishop situation, which is not ideal for black in general. So this improves black's chances a bit. Oops, sorry. Once again, whenever I do the evaluation bar, it starts lagging. So I think let's just do it without the evaluation bar for this one until I figure out a way to get more memory so that we don't have as much lag. Let me just try a couple of things. Let me try closing a few things so that the lag can be improved a bit. That's probably the easiest way because the memory is crashing. The too much memory it takes is making the stream a bit laggy. Okay, so I have closed a few things. Now we have slightly stream wise in terms of position. Black has really here attack the rook. Now will play the rook to e. This back. Are we still lagging, chat? If we are still lagging, then let's just get rid of the evaluation bar. But if I'm not lagging, then I think this is good to continue. And she goes like, you can switch to chess.com maybe. Yeah, I can. We can switch to chess.com, but the thing is, it's not a problem with the platform. It's more a problem with my computer. I'm not in my default streaming setup. So the resources are much more limited. And therefore, whenever I switch on the engine, the voice cracks. Okay, let's do it without the evaluation bar today, and then I'll be your evaluation bar today. And in the future streams, let's figure out a way to have a proper evaluation bar setup. But yeah, meanwhile, this is the problem in Nihal's game out here. The problem is that after bishop g3, rook e2, rook c8, there is a back rank weakness. But it's a game between two humans. And in the game, black played rook to c8 first, probably with the same idea. But this gave Nihal the option to take on e5 first. And after rook to c3, bishop to c3, now it's actually not at all clear to me if black is better anymore. So this is good news for Nihal. d4, good move. The idea is to try and get out of this pin by attacking the dark square bishop. Nihal, of course, sidesteps it. But black's priority will be to try and ensure that white does not have any passed pawns in the game. So maybe something like queen d8 is a good move. Because if queen d8, if f takes e4, then black takes d into e4. And both the d4 bishop and the a5 pawn will be simultaneously attacked. But I have a feeling that Nihal is past the worst and can actually get back chances of winning this one. Another plan for black is to keep the e4 pawn alive. He has to make this decision within a few seconds without the time to calculate or to look at the evaluation bar. But yeah, he can keep the e pawn alive and use it as counterplay against black's a pawn. He actually just played queen b5 and took queen takes a5. The problem here for black is that white will get an e passer. So the pawn will go to e5 likely and potentially to e6 as well. Black will block it with the king, and this bishop on d4 stands pretty strongly at the moment, blocking the advance of black's passed pawn on d5. Meanwhile, white will keep advancing with his pawns as far as he's allowed to. So this is the current situation in Nihal's game. Let's see. Yeah, it's rook and it's not rook and pawn for a queen. It's rook and bishop for the queen. So it's rook and bishop for the queen. By the way, are we still lagging? It seems like we are. My widget says The stream status is still poor. So if we are still lagging despite turning off the evaluation bar, then again we need to check for ways to lighten the memory load. Although I don't understand why we should be lagging right now without the evaluation bar. I've closed all the possible evaluation. I mean, I've closed all the memory intensive applications. Oh yeah, we are good now. Cool. And if there's any further lag, then just hit the refresh button, and I don't think we are going to be lagging anymore. Meanwhile, in the other Indian games, Sankalp has also managed to win against Shan Sargisian. He has these two passed pawns. The white king cannot keep an eye on both of them. Black, on the other hand, will easily control white's lone passed pawn. There's also the game between Harika against Mark Andrea. I think this is winning for white, and maybe he has already won. Queen e6, rook c6. But another game of interest is Aditya Mittal's. Aditya Mittal against Bibisara. And here also, black seems to be winning here on first sight. He's just a piece up. These kind of positions with few remaining pawns do give great chances to hold for the defensive side. But here I don't. Here at first sight, it looks like black is winning for me. A few factors to note: if the queens get traded, then in the position with bishop against pawns, white has better chances to make a draw because this hedge pawn is of the wrong color. So if it ever gets to a situation where there is only the bishop and king and pawn against the white king, then white can draw. Black will not be able to win because the king will either be stalemated on h1 or will keep moving back and forth between queen g1 to h1. So white will look to trade the queens at any cost here. If that happens, then all white needs to do is trade this one pawn for the three pawns that white has. This is the challenging situation for black in converting this. Another factor is the weakness of the king. The king has no safe place. So when the black queen goes forward, the white queen will keep giving these checks, repetitive checks, and also trying to get the queen to d2. Nihal played rook d1, preventing the black queen from coming to d2, and black played king f7. Still looks bad for Nihal. It looked a bit optimistic a while earlier, but I think it still looks bad. But also, it's very hard to defeat white here as well. I think it's kind of easy to get a fortress. Like for instance, even a position like this, I'm thinking, where white puts the bishop on c3, rook on d4, and king on h2 or h1. It's it might be a situation where it's impossible for black to progress further. So I think Nihal's probably not in danger anymore. Very good chances of drawing, but it's also pretty impossible to win this position. Win is also not going to happen. It's in fact a two results game where I think black is the one pushing, Nihal is the one defending. That much is clear. He's now played the rook to g4, attacking the pawn on g5, but queen e3. Nice move. These are also situations where, in some cases, white can get into a zugzwang. I'm just too scared to. I'm just too scared to put on the evaluation bar, without which I also feel a bit lost in being able to evaluate it instantly, whether this is winning for black or a draw. I think if white just plays the bishop to d4 and c3, it's going to be impossible for black to improve the position any further. Rook on g4 is on a light square. Black does not have a light square bishop or any pawn which can attack the rook. So the rook on g4 cannot be disturbed at all. On the other hand, um, the bishop also cannot be attacked any further on d4 and c3. So by logic, this should be a draw, unless I'm missing something incredibly strong and not obvious. I think this pretty much should be a draw. So good save for Nihal, a bit disappointing because he's the higher rated player and he looked to have a pretty promising position for most parts of the game. But also, on the other hand, he was losing when we came into this position. At some point, he was just clearly losing. So it is good that it is. It's actually not bad that it's a draw. So it could very well be a repetition right now. And yeah, the evaluation should already be 0.04. Harika was a bit better when I last checked, says Anshika, but I think times have changed and the position has also changed accordingly. So yeah, I think this game is a draw. Just 12 seconds more for Mitilishvili, but yeah, these are not games where black people flag. They can happen. They have also happened to me, but it's incredibly unlikely. Transmission errors, on the other hand, is likely to keep happening. But let's assume Nihal has drawn this game. So the only game that remains, okay, there are two games that remain amongst Indians. One is this game between Aditya, where he's got the pawn to e4, so that it's more difficult to exchange this pawn. If white tries to exchange it with f3, black will push it to e3. Very instructive. And in fact, the king can come to g4. So white will probably prevent it with something like h3. Black does not mind trading this rook pawn. The danger is only if the e pawn is traded. So black will need to try and keep this alive at any cost, which I think black will be able to. And on the other hand, this pawn can be traded to create an avenue for the king to move forward. So this position seems winning to me for black, and queen e4 is pretty instructive. The other Indian game, oh yeah, she's already resigned. So Aditya has also won. He had a pretty good performance in the Dubai Police, and he seems to be marching his way on towards further into 2600. Seems to be going forward and forward. I think Nihal's game must have ended in a draw. They must have agreed for a draw here, which is why the transmission has stopped. Probably they didn't keep the kings properly in the center, and the DGT did not understand. Pranav Anand is playing against Ilmaz Mustafa. The position seems really nice for white, opposite color bishop, but white is the one dominating. Black's king is the one weaker, but the number of weaknesses is really low in black's position, so it should be possible to hold. And the other game is between Parham against Setu, which looks not good for the Indian fans. The pawn on h7 is just too far advanced. The knight on f5 is quite strong. Rook g7 is coming up next, and rook g7 will cut off the king's path towards the h7 pawn, without which black cannot attack the pawn. Just totally lost. Looks totally lost to me. There's no way to save the pawn. Yeah, Arjun lost. For those who are just tuning in, the roundup is Arjun lost and Arvind won. Setu is losing. Indian lost. Raja drew. SL Narayanan drew against Dennis Cartridge. Nihal probably drew. I'll be brave and say that he drew. Sankal Gupta had a win against Shan Servician. That's a really good result. Raunak drew against AD the Beast. It was a very early draw. It happened so early that if Chessbase India was there, it would have been a competition for the shortest game in the history of chess video. Aditya Mittal defeated Bibisara. Leon Mendonca drew against Ritvik Raja, and V Pranav defeated Alisher Suleimanu. That's kind of the highlights of the results of the round two amongst prominent Indians. Now, we're not, I guess that's most of the games. The games are about to end. And like I mentioned at the beginning, Arjun also had a pretty bad start at the Sharjah Masters last year, but he managed to bounce his way back and managed to actually win the tournament with a score of just 6.5 out of 9, if I remember right. And I think this year also it will be a pretty low score which will win this tournament because the number of strong players is insanely high, and therefore I don't expect any one player to dominate the field and run through. But what do you think? Do you think Arjun is going to be able to bounce back on this one, or do you think it seems difficult? Bit early to say that it's difficult, but yeah, it's just the vibes, it's just the vibes of the thing. So I think that's a roundup of the round two of most of the games amongst Indians. And amongst the international players, the games which are going on right now, Sarana is playing against the super talented Edis, who's completely lost. This is just winning for White. King F7 is coming, and Edis has resigned, understandably. Esipenko is playing against Daneshwar. This is a draw, I think. No, actually, this should be winning for Black. F and D pawns. F and D pawns is not quite F and H pawn, which is a draw. So I think this is winning for Black. This is a draw. Gledura against Ivan. Ivan against Gledura. And the only game which is probably going to go on for some time is the Ilmaz Mustafa Pranav Anand game. Where Pranav Anand, again, a super talented youngster. He's just 16 years old, if I'm right, and was the world under 16 champion again, if I'm right. I'm a bit hazy with these facts, but I do know for the fact that he's really good. He's really ambitious, and is seems to have all the markers for a rapid rise in the next few years. So that's a roundup of the round two here. Yeah, the bar is gone because whenever I put on the bar, I think the stream starts lagging like crazy. So today I've kept it off. If I do stream on the future days, depending on the mood and depending on how the games are, then I'll find a way to keep the evaluation bar on. Sujit Varghese, I think Arjun will bounce back like last year. Yeah. Hey Ganesh, I'm good. How are you? Arjun going for the Swiss Gambit. Well, not intentional, but if it works, it works. But yeah, I think that's a roundup of round two of the Sharjah Masters. A super interesting tournament, like I mentioned in the beginning, and that will be all for today's stream. I do hope to be live on the upcoming rounds as well on the future days because, for one thing, I am going to be following this tournament pretty closely in any case, and I'm going to be looking at it every day. So I might as well look at it with all of you guys. And secondly, as I mentioned, it is a super interesting tournament because it is an indicator of all the upcoming super talents in the next 2 to 3 years. Those who might end up playing in GCT candidates and everything else. So it is a kind of an early talent watch. But yeah, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining. And oh, what Nihal has won? His opponent may have lost on time. Then it's possible. There are two ways. Either they get the king wrong, or his opponent could very well have lost on time. It's not impossible. We will wait for chess results for the correct result. But yeah, thank you so much for joining in and see you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.